A shard of flint against a bar of steel throws a spark hotter than 800 degrees. Cold kitchen, dark house, no matches. Your great-grandmother struck that spark before dawn, caught it on a scrap of charred cloth, and had a fire going while the rest of the street still slept. She didn't own a single thing with a battery in it, and she was never once left in the dark. Now think about your own house. Right now, count how many things stop working the second the power cuts out. The stove, the heat, the pump that pushes water to your tap. The little box on the wall that keeps your food cold. Most homes in this country are about 3 days from real trouble once the grid goes quiet. 3 days. Then people start knocking on doors. Here's what I want to hand you today, friend. 25 tools that modern life quietly threw away. Not because they stopped working. They worked too well. They lasted too long. Nobody could sell you a new one every year, so they got called old-fashioned, then quaint, then forgotten. And the folks who owned them never had to ask anyone's permission to stay warm, fed, and lit. We're going to count them down from 25 to 1. The last one on this list is the one everything else depends on. Skip it, and the other 24 won't save you, but we'll get there. A word before we start. My grandfather kept most of these in a shed out back. He never called them survival gear. He called them the way things were done. When I was a boy, I broke the handle off one of his tools trying to rush a job. He didn't yell. He just looked at it and said, "Now you'll learn to slow down." He was right. Every tool on this list rewards a patient hand. Let's begin. Number 25, the cast iron skillet. There's a good chance one is sitting in your cabinet right now, and you have no idea it may outlive your grandchildren. A cast iron pan has no coating to scratch off, no handle to melt, no electronics to fry. You can cook on a wood fire, a gas flame, or a bed of coals in the backyard. It holds heat like a stone. Folks have been passing the same skillets down for 100 years, and they cook better with age, not worse. Here's why it beats the fancy stuff. Modern non-stick pans start flaking after a couple years, and then they go in the trash. A cast iron pan you scratch. You just re-season with a little oil and heat. It heals itself. Season it, keep it dry, and it's a lifetime tool. One pan, one fire, hot food. Number 24, the kerosene lantern. When the sun goes down and the lights don't come on, most people reach for their phone flashlight and watch the battery bar drain. Your ancestors reached for a hurricane lantern. It burns kerosene or lamp oil, throws a steady warm glow across a whole room, and keeps going for hours on a single fill. The fuel stores for years without going bad. No charging, no signal, no dead battery at the worst possible moment. The flame sits behind glass, so wind won't kill it, which is how it earned the hurricane name. Trim the wick, keep it clean, and it'll light your nights long after the last power bank in your drawer has quit on you. Number 23, flint and steel. I opened this video with a spark, and now I'll tell you how to make one on purpose. You take a hard shard of flint or quartz in one hand and a bar of high-carbon steel in the other. You strike the steel down against the sharp edge of the stone. Tiny bits of steel shave off, catch fire from the friction, and fly off as sparks. You aim those sparks onto char cloth. That's cotton scraps you've burned in a closed tin until they're black and soft. The spark lands, the cloth glows, you tip it into a bundle of dry grass, and you blow it into flame. People made fire this way for hundreds of years before the match ever existed, and a match works in a way worth understanding. It runs out. A lighter runs dry. A flint and steel never expires. That steel will still throw sparks in 50 years, in the rain, at altitude, after it's been soaked and dried a dozen times. Strike, catch, blow, burn. Number 22, the cast iron Dutch oven. This is the skillet's big brother, and it's the closest thing your great-grandmother had to a slow cooker, an oven, and a stock pot all in one. It's a heavy-lidded pot you can bury in coals. You put your bread dough, your beans, your stew inside, set it in the fire, and shovel hot coals onto the rimmed lid so it bakes from the top and the bottom at once. No electric oven required, no temperature dial, just fire and a little practice reading the heat. Wagon families crossed the whole country cooking every meal out of one of these. It never needed a plug, it never needed a replacement part, and it made real bread in the middle of nowhere. Coals below, coals on top, hot food for 10. First pattern break, friend. Look at what we've covered so far. A pan, a lamp, a spark, a pot. Every one of them does its job with nothing but your two hands and some fuel you can find. Notice something else. Not one of these tools can be switched off from far away. Nobody can send a signal that bricks your Dutch oven. Nobody can push an update that ruins your flint. The modern world sold you convenience, and the fine print was dependence. Everything below this line is about taking that dependence back. Number 21. The hand-crank grain mill. Flour goes stale within a year. But whole grain, kept dry and cool, stores for decades. Your ancestors knew this, so they stored the grain and ground it fresh when they needed it. A hand-crank mill clamps to the edge of a table. You pour wheat berries in the top, you turn the handle, and flour comes out the bottom. No electricity, no trip to the store. You grind exactly what you need for the day's bread and leave the rest sealed up and safe. Think about what that means in a long emergency. The man with a pantry full of flour has maybe a year before it turns rancid. The man with buckets of whole grain and a hand mill has 30. Same shelf, wildly different odds. Store the grain, grind it fresh. Number 20. The wood-burning cook stove. When the gas gets cut and the electric range goes dark, the kitchen dies with it. A wood stove doesn't care. It burns split logs, scrap lumber, fallen branches, anything dry you can feed it. It cooks your food, boils your water, and heats the whole room while it does it. That was the whole point. One fire did 3 jobs. A stove like this needs a proper chimney, safe clearance, and a working carbon monoxide alarm. Smoke and carbon monoxide can kill a family in a closed room. Old knowledge still needs careful hands. Number 19. The haybox cooker. During the World Wars, families saved fuel by bringing a pot of food to a boil, then moving it into an insulated box packed with hay, wool, or folded blankets. The trapped heat kept cooking the meal for hours. Beans softened, oatmeal stayed hot, tough cuts of meat slowly turned tender. The method takes planning. Use a pot with a tight lid. Bring the food to a full boil. Wrap the pot well, then place it inside the box. Leave no gaps around it. The food keeps cooking without a flame burning beneath it. A wooden box and clean packing material can replace hours of stove time. Watch the food temperature, especially with meat. Warm food left too long in the danger range can grow harmful bacteria. Number 18. The root cellar. A root cellar gave families a cool place to store food after the garden died back. The temperature stays fairly steady below ground, and steady temperatures slow rot. Potatoes, carrots, beets, onions, apples, and squash can last through much of the cold season when stored in the right conditions. The vegetables must be clean and dry. A cut potato can spoil a whole crate. Keep apples away from potatoes because apples release gas that can speed ripening. Give the food air. Damp, trapped air brings mold. A cellar under the house works well, but a buried barrel or a small insulated corner can help in a smaller home. The old system had 3 parts: cool soil, dry food, and moving air. Number 17. The salt crock. Before freezers filled every kitchen, salt helped preserve meat. Families packed pork into a crock with salt, then kept the container cool. Salt pulled water from the meat. That slowed the growth of many germs and helped keep the meat usable. The work had to be done with care. The meat needed full contact with the salt. The crock needed to stay clean. The cure had to match the type and weight of the meat. Modern food safety guidance matters here because botulism and other illnesses can grow in poorly cured food. Salt curing still has a place in a serious pantry. Use tested recipes from a state extension service or the United States Department of Agriculture. Guesswork belongs in card games, not in meat preservation. Number 16. The pressure canner. Boiling water can safely can many fruits, jams, and pickles. Low-acid foods need higher heat. That includes meat, beans, corn, and most plain vegetables. A pressure canner raises the temperature inside the jar so these foods can be sealed safely. The jar is filled with prepared food, leaving the right headspace. The lid is placed on top. The canner reaches the pressure listed in the tested recipe. After processing, the jars cool and seal. Never use a pressure canner with a cracked gauge or a missing weight. Never trust a jar that smells wrong, leaks, or has a loose lid. A pantry full of bad food is a hidden trap. Number 15. The treadle sewing machine. A treadle machine runs from the movement of your feet. It needs no wall outlet. Its needle joins cloth with a steady stitch, and the heavy frame can keep working for decades with oil and cleaning. A torn shirt can become a patch. A worn sheet can become a work apron. A child's coat can gain another season. The repair takes thread, cloth, and practice. Those supplies fit in a small box. My grandfather kept old clothes folded by color. Cotton went into patches. Wool went into mittens. Buttons went into a jar. Nothing waited for a delivery truck. Second pattern break. The list has moved from fire to food, then from food to clothing. That order mattered in a real household. Heat kept you alive tonight. Stored food carried you through winter. Repaired clothing kept the cold from reaching your skin. The next tools work on the things people handle every day. A dull blade, a dirty floor, a body that still needs care when stores are closed. That is where the old habits become plain, useful work. Number 14. The whetstone. A dull knife is more dangerous than a sharp one. It slips. It crushes instead of cutting. It turns a simple job into a trip to the emergency room, and an emergency room is exactly the place you may not be able to reach. A whetstone fixes that with nothing but stone, water, and a steady hand. You wet the stone, lay the blade at a low angle, and draw it across in even strokes, same angle every time. Coarse side first if the edge is rolled or chipped, fine side to finish. 5 minutes of this, and a tired kitchen knife comes back sharp enough to shave hair off your arm. No outlet, no replacement blades to buy. Just the same stone, wearing down slower than you'd think, doing the same job it did for your great-grandfather's axe. Number 13. The washboard. Clean clothes were never a luxury. Dirty, damp fabric against skin for days at a time is how sores start and infections spread. A washboard is a slab of ridged metal or glass set in a wooden frame. You scrub the cloth against the ridges with soap and water, and the friction does what a washing machine's drum does with electricity. It's slow work. Your knuckles will tell you that the first time. But it needs no power, no repair part shipped from overseas, and it fits in a closet. Pair it with a hand crank wringer, and you can do a week's laundry for a family in an afternoon, using a fraction of the water a machine wastes on a single cycle. Number 12. Homemade lye soap. Soap is not a small thing. It's the line between a household that stays healthy and one that doesn't. Before soap came in plastic bottles from the store, families rendered animal fat, mixed it with lye, made from wood ash and water, and cooked their own bars. The process demands respect. Lye burns skin on contact, so gloves and eye protection are not optional, and a tested recipe with a proper fat-to-lye ratio matters more than tradition alone. Done right, though, one batch of fat and ash makes soap enough for a household for months, and it never runs out on the shelf at the worst possible time. Number 11. The outhouse. Nobody wants to talk about this one, and that's exactly why it belongs on the list. When the water stops running, the toilet in your bathroom becomes a bucket that doesn't flush. Disease spreads faster from bad sanitation than from almost anything else in a real emergency. Families who lived without plumbing solved this with a simple pit privy, or later, a sawdust-covered composting system that kept waste contained and broke it down safely. The design isn't complicated. Distance from the well, a proper cover, a layer of dry material after every use. It's not glamorous work, but it's the difference between a hard season and an outbreak. Third pattern break. We've spent the last few minutes on the parts of survival nobody puts on a magazine cover: a sharp knife, clean laundry, soap, a place to relieve yourself without spreading sickness. Your great-grandparents didn't think of these as impressive. They thought of them as Tuesday. That's the whole secret this list is trying to hand you. Real preparedness isn't a bunker full of gadgets. It's a list of boring jobs, done well, every single day. Number 10. The kitchen medicine chest. Long before the nearest pharmacy was a 10-minute drive, most homes kept a small shelf of dried herbs for common trouble. Chamomile for a restless night, ginger for a sour stomach, yarrow packed onto a cut to help slow the bleeding. These weren't cures for serious illness, and no one pretended they were. They were the first line of care while you waited to see if a real doctor was needed. Growing and drying a handful of herbs costs almost nothing and takes up one shelf. It won't replace modern medicine, and it was never meant to. But it meant a scraped knee or an upset stomach didn't turn into a crisis just because the store was closed. Number 9. Beeswax candles. The kerosene lantern earned its place higher on this list, but beeswax candles solved a different problem. They needed no fuel to store, no wick trimming under pressure, and they burned cleaner and slower than the tallow candles poorer families were often stuck with. A single beeswax candle, kept dry, can sit unused for years and still light on the first strike. Families who kept bees rendered their own wax after harvesting honey, so the candle and the sweetener came from the same hive. Nothing wasted. Light and food from one small box in the yard. Number 8. The wool quilt. A blanket is not just a blanket when the furnace goes quiet in January. Wool holds heat even when it's damp, which cotton simply cannot do. Families carded raw wool by hand, spun it, and layered it inside a quilt, sewn from scrap fabric that had already lived a full life as clothing before it became bedding. A well-made wool quilt, aired out and kept dry, outlasts a mattress. It doesn't need a dryer, a repair, or a replacement every few winters. It needs a cedar chest and a little patience with a needle when a seam finally gives. Number 7. The rain barrel. Water falls from the sky for free, and most modern homes let every drop of it run straight into a storm drain. A rain barrel set beneath a gutter catches what a roof sheds during a single storm, often enough to fill dozens of gallons in an hour. That water waters a garden, washes clothes, or, with the right filtering and boiling, keeps a family drinking. The setup is almost embarrassingly simple. A barrel, a screen to keep debris and mosquitoes out, and a spigot near the bottom. Families who kept one never had to choose between the tap bill and the garden. Number 6. The smokehouse. The salt crock cured meat in a kitchen. The smokehouse cured it for a whole community. This was a small, dedicated building where hams, bacon, and sausages hung for days over a slow, cool smoke, usually from hickory or applewood. The smoke did two jobs at once. It added flavor, and its chemical compounds slowed the growth of the bacteria that spoil meat. A family with a working smokehouse could turn one hog into food that lasted the better part of a year without a single square inch of freezer space. It asked for patience and a careful eye on the fire, and it paid that patience back all winter. Number 5. The seed vault. Every plant a family grew, they let some of it go to seed instead of eating it, then dried those seeds and stored them in paper envelopes marked by hand. That small effort meant next year's garden never depended on a store having stock, a truck making its delivery, or a company staying in business. A jar of dry, labeled seeds, kept cool and away from moisture, can outlast the gardener who saved them. It's the quietest tool on this whole list, and maybe the most patient one. You plant this year's harvest to guarantee next year's. Number 4. The barn raising. Not every tool on this list fits in a shed. Some of it lived in the neighbors. When a family's barn burned or a roof caved under snow, the whole community showed up, together, and rebuilt it in a single day. Nobody kept a ledger of who owed who. The debt was understood, and it went both ways, because everyone knew their turn would come eventually too. This is the tool modern life left behind hardest of all, harder than any object on this list. A phone full of contacts is not the same as a street full of people who will show up with tools at dawn because you do the same for them. Number 3. The laying hen. A can of food in the pantry is used once. A hen in the yard produces again and again, turning kitchen scraps and bugs into eggs almost every single day, for years, without a single trip to the store. Families kept a small flock, not as a hobby, but as a quiet, self-renewing pantry that never needed restocking, only feeding. A few hens, a secure coop, and clean water asked for maybe 15 minutes a day. In return, a family got protein that showed up on its own schedule, rain or shine, power on or power out. Number 2, the almanac. Before weather apps, families tracked the sky, the wind, and the behavior of animals, and they wrote down what they learned, year after year, in a book passed hand to hand. It told them when to plant, when the first frost was likely, and when to bring the livestock in. It wasn't magic. It was decades of pattern, recorded on paper that never needed a signal or a battery. That habit of watching, recording, and planning ahead is the real tool here. Anyone can buy a lantern. Fewer people build the discipline to look at the sky every morning and plan their week around what it's telling them. Number 1. The hand-dug well. Here it is, friend, the one everything else on this list depends on. A cast iron skillet is useless without water to clean it. A wood stove can't make soup. A hay box can't cook beans. A root cellar can't store a washed potato. And no medicine chest on earth helps a family that's dehydrated. Water comes before all 24 other tools, every time, without exception. A hand-dug well, lined with stone or brick and topped with a simple hand pump or a rope and bucket, gave a family a source of clean water that owed nothing to a city pipe, a power grid, or a monthly bill. Dig it deep enough to clear the water table, line it to keep the walls from collapsing, and cap it to keep debris and animals out, and that well will outlive the house built beside it. That's the whole list, friend. 25 tools, and underneath every one of them, the same quiet truth. None of this was about hoarding gear. It was about needing less permission from the modern world to stay alive, warm, and fed. Your great-grandparents didn't call it prepping, they called it Tuesday. If even one of these belongs in your house, start there. Pick the tool, learn it slowly, and let it teach you the same patience it taught the people who used it every day of their lives.